Welcome back. We are going live from the district with Congressman Khanna. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, here's a tweet from you, Congressman. Bernie Sanders has fought for ordinary Americans for decades, even when it's made him unpopular with wealthy donors and party elites. He has the populist progressive vision to lead us into the 21st century. I'm proud to be national campaign co-chair. So not only are you endorsing Bernie Sanders, but now you're working for him. Out of all the Democratic candidates running, why choose Bernie and why so early?
Well, I think he understands more than anyone the income divide in this country, and he speaks for working families, for folks who are struggling to be in the middle class, for rural America that's been left out. He also has rejected old corporate money, PAC money. And finally, I worked with him on the Yemen resolution, and he's reorienting foreign policy so that we're not supporting the Saudis, so that we're prioritizing human rights. So I just believe he has a comprehensive vision for economic justice and social justice.
All right, I feel like a lot of that could have been said the last presidential election, though. What is Sanders doing differently this time?
Well, a couple of things. Look, Hillary Clinton was a very formidable candidate. I mean, I supported Bernie in the primary, but then Hillary in the general. She was a Secretary of State. She was a senator. So it's not to be underestimated that he got 13 million votes against someone who had universal name ID. Now he starts out with a huge advantage. He's the only person so far in the field who has actually run for president. He has 13 million votes. I do think he has assembled a very diverse team. More people in his inner circle who come from all different backgrounds, and both in terms of minorities and women, and a more inclusive team, and I think that's going to serve him well.
Are you satisfied with how Bernie Sanders has responded to reported allegations of sexual harassment and gender pay gaps during his 2016 campaign?
Well, I had a conversation with him, and he said there's going to be a absolutely zero tolerance policy for this. If there is any incident, the person will be removed. And he has worked with leading experts to make sure that that's going to have zero place in this campaign. And many of us co-chairs, Nina Turner, myself, and others, have made that abundantly clear that we cannot have any place for that in this campaign.
You are also now a member of the House Oversight Committee, which, of course, will be publicly questioning Michael Cohen on Wednesday. What do you personally plan on asking him? If he dodges a lot of questions, would you be willing to subpoena him?
Well, I do think we have to be willing to subpoena him. You know, I want to know what he knew about President Trump, and are there crimes that Trump may have committed or illegal acts he did that he hasn't talked about yet? Were they more women who were paid hush money? There are a lot of questions out there. The New York prosecutors have said that Michael Cohen hasn't been fully forthcoming, and we're going to press him to make sure that all of the information comes out. What we want is transparency. If he's unresponsive, we should be willing to subpoena him. At the very least, he should have to take the Fifth Amendment if he's not going to respond.
All right, here's a tweet from George Stephanopoulos. Representative Adam Schiff tells me he is absolutely prepared to sue Trump administration if Mueller report is not made public. So if it comes to a subpoena there, would you support Adam Schiff in that effort?
I would. I mean, look, everyone should be for the transparency of the Mueller report. If Trump himself has said that there's no collusion and he's going to be vindicated, he should be for getting the Mueller report out and letting the facts speak for themselves. You know, in Washington, people who try to hide things, conceal things, it never works out. Everything eventually becomes public. I am going to push for the transparency of that report, and I would support Adam Schiff in any effort to make sure that that report is public.
Okay. California Senator Dianne Feinstein seemed quite dismissive of the Green New Deal in a video that took over Twitter this weekend. A lot of debate. You, of course, were an early supporter of the New Deal. So I wanted to know, what do you make of her remarks to those kids? Did she handle that moment well?
Well, it wasn't one of her highlights. And look, I had endorsed her opponent in the last primary election. But after that, I sat down with her, and she said that she really wants to understand some of the progressive movement. She understands that the party demands action on Medicare for all, on a Green New Deal. That wasn't a highlight for her, but my hope is that she will learn from it, learn from the response, and be supportive and understand why these young people are so passionate. I am very proud of being a supporter of the Green New Deal. It's going to help create jobs in communities left behind, and it's necessary to avoid avoid catastrophic consequences in 12 years, according to the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change.
All right, you have also spoken out about how apps like Instacart have used tips in their services. You said on February 8th, they're basically having wage theft. So what are you doing to make sure workers are getting paid?
Well, I spoke out about it, and in response, Instacart a day later announced that they were increasing their policies of wages and not going to take their tips. Now, it wasn't just because I spoke out. There were a number of us who spoke out. But look, I use Instacart. My wife uses Instacart. It's a convenient service and makes it easy if you're traveling to get groceries. But what we shouldn't be doing is using innovation to deprive workers of what they're entitled to. It's ridiculous that they have a default tip of 5%. I mean, who tips 5%? Most people tip at least 15, 20%. And it's ridiculous that they were taking the tip and removing that tip from people's wages. I'm glad that they're now going to change that practice. They're a $7 billion company. They're getting ready to IPO. They can afford to pay workers a fair wage.
You made those comments about Instacart when you were a guest on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show. You also said this recently about Carlson. Tucker Carlson offers a devastating critique of interventionism and shows how much of the foreign policy establishment has failed the American people. There is an emerging left-right coalition of common sense for a foreign policy of restraint. Congressman, why do you think Tucker Carlson is someone providing common sense foreign policy?
Well, I don't agree with Tucker on a number of issues, certainly his comments on race and gender, and I don't agree with him on all of the foreign policy issues. For example, Venezuela, I have been unapologetically saying we shouldn't be intervening or rushing to war. Tucker has a different view. But the article I cited was one where he critiqued Max Boot and Bill Kristol and said that the war in Iraq was wrong. Tucker has spoken out about the war in Yemen and our support of the Saudis. And my view is that to stop endless wars, to stop our the casualties in Yemen, we need to take a coalition from as broad a perspective as we can. I'm going and meeting Lindsey Graham because Lindsey Graham is considering supporting our War Powers resolution to stop the war in Yemen. So I vehemently disagree with Tucker on many, many issues. But where he is willing to speak out about the war in Iraq or criticize people like neocons such as Max Boot or Bill Kristol, I think that his voice on those discrete issues can help build a coalition to stop bad wars.
Here's the thing, and I know you're kind of preempting this a bit, but I'm going to push you on it, Congressman. You know, only a few months ago, advertisers...
No, please do.
Yeah, we're dropping Tucker Carlson's show after he said immigrants made the United States, quote, poorer and dirtier. So, you know, you're saying that you, of course, are willing to, you know, find opportunities to compromise with people like Lindsey Graham and Tucker Carlson as long as, you know, there are those opportunities. But at this point, how do you justify continuing to show up on Tucker Carlson's show? Is there something that he would say or do that would make you decide, listen, I'm not going to appear anymore?
Look, as you know, I'm the son of immigrants. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail with Gandhi. My parents came here. I remember them having their green card stamped, and I represent a district that's 50% foreign-born, and I understand, representing Silicon Valley, the contributions that immigrants have made to this country. There wouldn't be Apple, there wouldn't be Google, there wouldn't be Microsoft, there wouldn't be Facebook if it weren't for the contributions of immigrants. So I don't think anyone has a record of speaking about the positives of immigration more than I do. But here's the reality. There are some of those who believe that we shouldn't go on Fox News. Fox News speaks to a large audience. I believe that by going on and sticking to my guns and sticking to my principles, that it's worth engaging people, because I fundamentally believe this is a good, decent country at its heart. And going on, I can make the case. Now, if Tucker Carlson
said, like, white supremacists are great, would you still be willing to show up?
No. I mean, obviously, there is a line, and at that point, I think people would call for him to lose his show. And there is a line that we have to be mindful of. But I do think that if Tucker Carlson were to have me on and he were to say that immigrants aren't making a contribution, I would say, Tucker, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. Let me tell you. In fact, I went on his show and I talked about a Pakistani immigrant in rural West Virginia who was teaching kids code and how much of a contribution she's making. Now, here's the question. I can go on MSNBC or your program all day and talk about the Pakistani-American woman and her contributions, and people will say, yeah, well, we agree. But think about the power of going on Fox News and Tucker Carlson show and getting to say that to Fox News viewers. We need to make the case for a pluralistic, multicultural America, not just on forums that are easy, but on places like Fox News so that we can build a coalition for the America we believe in. We shouldn't be afraid to engage in that debate.
All right.
Donald Trump went on MSNBC a lot before he became the nominee.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there for now. As always, thank you again for coming back on AM to DM. Congressman Khanna.
I love it. I love the spirited conversation. Thanks for having me.